Hi everybody, Gary Williams here for Toolbarn.com's Barn Banter. You may think that you've seen it all when it comes to saws, but I'll tell you what you probably haven't, because like all technology, saw technology is always moving forward. It's always changing a little bit. It's come a long way from the saw that my dad used to use when he would cut wood, the old hand saw with the umpteen teeth and the wooden handle and those kind of things. Now, he wasn't quite old enough to really use nothing but those hand saws. He did have some power tools. But saws are changing, and they're getting better and better, and they're getting more specialized at the same time. So, if you are well familiar with saws, then you probably have seen some of the things, at least, that we're going to show you today. If you're not real familiar with saws, then you may see something new. In either case, stick with us and take a look at what we're going to show you, because then you can say you saw it on Barn Banter. Saw it. Okay, the first one I'm going to show you is the skill saw, or circular saw as it's commonly known. A lot of different companies make the circular saws, and they make them in a couple different configurations: worm drive or sidewinder, and that just refers to what actually turns the blade on the side here, the drive mechanism for that. Now these things are really useful. They're great for things like framing, cutting 2x4s, and ripping boards, and doing some other types of things, probably more in the gross cuts types of things, the larger cuts, the stuff that doesn't require a huge amount of precision. That's what these things are really good for and what they really excel in. They're lightweight, they're easy to use, they're just a very functional and useful tool, and it's really a must-have for your tool collection. The compound miter saw is one of my favorite saws of all time, and I'll tell you what, they come in all shapes and sizes. This is a 10-inch from Hitachi, and this is kind of a basic model for them. I'll tell you what, even with this thing, you can do a whole lot of carpentry work. You can do, for example, I'm going to show you a couple of different kinds of cuts. Straight cut. We'll start with a hard one. If you're doing trim work, make an appropriate cut. This, for example, you might do something like this for a picture frame. For example, 45-degree corners, whatever. You can bevel the cuts as well, which is kind of handy for crown molding and some other types of stuff. So, get a look at that. Now look, this thing, it makes nice, great, clean cuts. It makes a whole lot of different kinds of cuts, and it's really great for a lot of those finishing type projects that you might have when you're working on anything in your house, and you can do a whole lot of stuff with a compound miter such as this one from Hitachi. So we've got a whole lot of different kinds of miters at Toolbarn.com, so check those out. You will find one that'll meet your needs, I guarantee you, and it won't cost you an arm and a leg to do it. So check them out. This is another one of my favorite tools, or I guess they're all my favorite tools. I guess that's because they all do different kinds of things, but this really is. This tool saved me a ton of work probably 8 to 10 years ago when I was trying to make repairs on my deck, and I found out that really what I needed to do was tear the deck down altogether and rebuild it. I started trying to do that and found that the people who had built that deck in the first place had actually, in some cases, driven like 25 to 30 nails through some of the joints and stuff, instead of using really solid bolts and wood screws and those kind of things, that nail after nail after nail after nail. I don't want to pull all those things, and it was a pain trying to cut them with a hacksaw. So, Sawzall, reciprocating saw. I tell you what, I had one of these things, put a metal cutting blade, went through and cut those nails, and they did have some wood screws, I think maybe 3. But I went through it and cut the nails and cut those screws with this thing. It made the work a ton easier than if I'd just had to use a sledgehammer or tried to pry those things apart with a pry bar. You know, it's got a place. You're not going to do fine carpentry with this, but the carpentry you do, the demolition carpentry, will be fine by the time you're done, I promise. It's really a great tool to have if you've got things to tear apart. This is one of my favorite saws. Wait a minute, I've already said it. Well, it is one of my favorite saws. All these are my favorite saws. I really like these things. I've got a jigsaw. In fact, I've got a couple of them. But the nice thing about these saws is that they are kind of based on the reciprocating saw that we showed you just a second ago. And you can see the blade has that same kind of action, but actually it was developed in the late 40s, and part of the inspiration for this thing was the sewing machine, because that's got a similar motion as a sewing machine needle. The beauty of these things, and you've seen these at work in our episode on the Kerplunk game and on the Adirondack chairs that we built, is that you can cut angles, corners, rounded corners in materials, wood, plastics, other types of things with these things, because they have a small blade that's very agile. They have a big surface that everything rests on and allows you to make some of those turns that you need to turn. Very useful for all kinds of things in crafts and woodworking and so forth. You know, you could probably make a jigsaw puzzle out of this jigsaw. In fact, I'm going to challenge you to do that. Make a jigsaw puzzle with a jigsaw like this, and send us your pictures. Okay? Now here is another great advance, I think, in saw technology. A tabletop table saw, basically, is what this is, and it's small, it's compact in form, it's lightweight. I can lift this thing and kind of shovel it around wherever I need to take it. But the best part about it is that it's got plenty of power for a lot of industrial type jobs. And I think one way maybe that you can describe that little table saw is that it's sort of like a circular saw inverted. Now you can, you know, kind of imagine that, and it'll do some beveling and some mitering too. It'll cut big sheets of wood. It'll do so with precision, more precision than a table saw, or than a circular saw, because it's mounted and it's stationary. So a lot of things that you can do with this thing, and I'm just going to take a very small piece of wood and I'm going to rip it here just to give you an idea. And it's certainly not a full indication of what you can do with this thing, but it'll give you an idea. And I will tell you this, it does come with a push stick here, a plastic push stick, and I would suggest that you use these when you're working with a table saw. Let's go ahead and now, I always wait for the blade to stop before I reach in and grab the wood. That may be one reason that I still have all my fingers, but if you look at this thing, you know, what was one piece of wood is a couple of very nicely cut pieces of wood. And these are great for job site work. They're great for workshop work. You can put it in a nice small storage area, dig it out whenever you need it, or you can put it on a stand and keep it there and just have it for use. That's kind of, I think, what I would do. My table saw, you may have seen in previous episodes, is pretty well falling apart and non-useful. So this is what I'm going to look for. It's a great unit. It does a lot of work, and it's just something that I think is pretty indispensable when you get right down to it. So check it out on Toolbarn.com. Bosch isn't the only maker of these things, so you can find a variety of them there. If you look at this saw, this looks a lot like a circular saw, doesn't it? Except that it is retractable, and there's a good reason for that. This is actually a track saw, and it fits on a track and moves along that track like so. It engages the blade when you push down on the handle, and of course you pull the trigger, and it'll cut to various depths. You can set the depth, and it's used primarily for things like sheeted products, for example, flooring, 4x8 sheets of wood. You can set the depth so that you can cut a whole lot of different types of things, and it is kind of a specialty tool. But I'll tell you what, with the track component of this, it will give you a nice, straight, clean cut every time, and it really is helpful when you've got to do a lot of precision cutting. And it's just another type of a specialty saw or a specialty tool that you might consider if you've got a lot of work to do. The saws that you've seen today have one thing in common, and that's that a lot of them can be used for a lot of different things. And I know that's how a lot of people do things. You take one saw and you use it for a lot of different stuff. However, if you're going to do a lot of specialty type of stuff, sometimes it's worth your money and your time to go ahead and buy the saw made just for that kind of a task, because it'll save you time and money and effort in the long run. I'm all about saving time and money and effort in the long run. So we've got a huge assortment of saws at Toolbarn.com. We've got some great prices on all of them. You will find what you need there. If you're in the market for a saw, check out Toolbarn.com, because you'll find what you need at a price that you can afford, and you can be assured that it will be good quality. So that's kind of our mission, is to make sure that you've got the right tool at the right price for the right job. It doesn't do anybody any good if you don't get the right tool at the right price for the right job. We just want to make sure that what you get fits your needs. Thanks for watching today. We hope you've learned a little bit about saws, and we hope that you'll come back next week when we bring you a lot of information on a whole bunch more stuff. Thanks for joining us.